Yuuji is a little boy who struggles in his early years because he does not recognize his natural characteristics. He is a kind child, but he does not know how to interact with others, and his parents bully him for having no talent. However, a tragedy strikes his home, convincing him to undergo training and become the first super soldier at age 16. Compared to his older sister Kazuki, his parents believed he lacked talent. Kazuki, unlike the others, actually cared for him, even though his sister had always been perfect and a genius, excelling in whatever she attempted. Kazuki played with Yuuji and taught him things such as using both hands to his advantage. She also encouraged him to draw and display his work, but Yuuji was aware that his artwork paled compared to that of her sisters. Despite this, he was pleased to be praised. Later that evening, their father, Ryuji, became angry and ordered Kazuki to erase Yuuji's drawing since he deemed it a family disgrace. The next day, Yuuji ran into Kurihara, a weird man. Kurihara offered him chocolate before he walked after noticing him. Eventually, Kazuki's paintings became their family's primary source of money. As a result, their parents grew even more fond of her, and Yuuji grew even more distant and ignored. His parents and Kazuki spent their evenings dining in upscale places, but Yuuji always ate alone at home with a crusty slice of bread. Kazuki is astonished when she enters and discovers Yuuji dipping bread in water to make it edible. She hurried to the refrigerator and showed him what he could eat, but he feared being scolded if he did. She told him that she would scold them if they did so. She felt compassion for him and apologized for his treatment. Yuuji overheard her sister complaining to their parents about his treatment, but nothing changed. It even got worse. His parents' dislike of him grew, and his mother began to avoid him. When Yuuji once told Kazuki that he had made a friend, she was pleased, but when she discovered that the friend was female, she became jealous and displeased. She did not want him to make female friends, so she told him he needed her permission before befriending a female. Yuuji feared this aspect of Kazuki because he saw her as a god. Despite his fear, he knew he could depend on her because he perceived her as a god, not a human. Kazuki's life was cut short when she was involved in an accident that led to the breakdown of her family. His drunken father mistreated his mother and him. While hiding in the closet, he even witnessed his father assaulting his mother. Due to her weakness, she would say sorry. When she could no longer stand to live with his father, they fled together. Despite their less-than-ideal circumstances, his mother worked tirelessly to provide for his needs as the family made a fresh start. Yuuji believed that his father's absence represented heaven. Yuuji lived that way for a year until his father discovered it. Both became afraid when his father forced him to purchase booze for their home. After following instructions, he discovered his mother being tormented by his father. In an attempt to stop his father, he was severely beaten. As he took up the bottle of booze, he recalled what his sister had asked him when she asked him which hand he would use to kill a man. Without hesitation, he raised his right hand and struck his father, causing him to fall to the earth. He ran to his mother, who was in a panic. She was concerned about how they could escape without his father discovering them. She jumped up and instructed him to flee, adding that she would pursue him after handing him the money pocket and warning him not to misplace it. She suggested he go to the station when asked where he should go. Yuuji fled after noticing his mother was taking too long and hearing the sound of sirens. When he returned to their home, he observed a commotion and was horrified to see people carrying a body wearing his father's watch. As soon as he thought of his mother, he rushed inside, where he saw cops photographing the suicide scene and recognized that it was his mother. As he caught his breath after screaming his lungs out in terror, he lost consciousness. He received his mother's letter at the hospital. She questioned where she had gone wrong and apologized for what had done with Yuuji. Upon reading the letter, he gripped it hard and wept. When he was released from the hospital, he was adopted by the odd guy he had met, Kurihara, but this did not alleviate his misery. Kurihara referred to him as a female and forced him to wear a wig that matched Kazuki's hair. Despite this, he tolerated them all without uttering a word. One evening, a man tried to harass him, but he murdered him. Kurihara learned about it and was amazed by his actions. He believed that Yuuji possessed something everyone should have, so he brought him to his training camp to mold him into a valuable instrument. Kurihara informed Yuuji that it was a method to reciprocate the courtesy of adopting him, thus, Yuuji did not object. During his training, his marksmanship skills were evident. The other campers disliked him but Oslo liked him. Eventually, they assaulted him, but a woman named Marlon tended to his wounds and fed him. She was kind to him, which encouraged him to assume that perhaps the world wasn't that terrible. Unfortunately, Marlon was his opponent, and he had to kill or incapacitate him to pass the final examinations required for graduation. As Marlon ran out of air, Yuuji glanced at her with a cold expression and avoided her strike. He swiftly followed it by simultaneously striking and slapping her. When she rose off the ground, he would not allow her to attack and mercilessly booted her in the face. She screamed, and as she fell to the ground, an image of his mother flashed through his mind. As a result, he began to fear that he would become like his father. He yelled as he began to lose control of himself, but Marlon struck him, causing him to fall to the ground. She smiled as he punched her, and as a final blow, she kicked him into the air, knocking him unconscious. After the fight, Marlon cried and apologized to Yuuji since his mother had said the same thing, and he didn't want to hear them again. He felt helpless and weak. That was the final time he saw Marlon before her passing in her first job. Yuuji was assigned an actual mission after 2 months to assess his graduation status. He was charged with assassinating those he deemed simple. The CIA attempted to examine these cases, but they only knew that he was a strange youngster because they could not determine his identity via their investigations. However, the riddle has now been solved. During the night of the CIA operation, they infiltrated Oslo's apartment and discovered Yuuji. Asako found Yuuji in a subterranean tunnel while he was being restrained, and she ended up rescuing him. Afterwards, he was cared by Asako, whose home was in the woods. He spent his days staring into nothing, and their initial days together were unpleasant. There, he met JB, a friend and co-worker of Asako. Asako chose to bathe while speaking with JB, however, they discovered numerous bruises and scars on his body. Upon finding that he was nothing more than skin and bones, Asako offered him food. After swatting a fly on the table, Yuuji cried out of nowhere, interrupting their meal. He vomited as, over time, his past traumas resurfaced. Asako and Yuuji got along well. Despite his horrific upbringing, he was pleased since she gave him a puppy whom he named John and whom he grew to love. Asako began teaching Yuuji. She instructed him to be swift, to use his power correctly, and to read books to obtain knowledge. In addition, he discovered that she worked for the CIA, a Japanese-American anti-terror group. The following day, Asako instructed him on how to shoot his target precisely and offered him a reward if he was successful. When they arrived home, he discovered a huge case on the table. Asako instructed him to unlock it, and after that, he found a firearm. Yuuji became enthusiastic and took up the gun to test it. She sends Yuuji on a hunt, but when they arrive in the woods, he struggles to kill the deer since the past once again plagued him. However, Asako let him go, telling him he was just a child. John was heard barking in their home by Yuuji. The following day, he searched for Asako but discovered a bear had broken into their home. He races to fetch his revolver, but when he returns, he discovers a lifeless John hanging from the bear's mouth. He aims the gun at the bear but finds it difficult to fire. As he knelt on the floor and yelled John's name, he chased after the bear again by following his dog's bloody footprints. He was determined to get John back. When he noticed the bear, he attempted to re-aim the gun but slipped in the snow and mistakenly fired the weapon elsewhere. The bear detected him and attacked, leaving him with only a knife. He attempted to stab it, but the bear was so mighty that it swung his blade into the air. As he grew increasingly terrified, voices in his head urged him to kill it, and he experienced horrible flashbacks. He reached for a stick and stabbed the bear in the eye. As he was about to fire his weapon, he noticed the bear's cubs and realized that it intended to feed John to them. At that point, he lost hope and questioned why his dog was becoming a bear's meal. He wept and vomited as he yelled and demanded to know why he pulled the trigger after observing the bears methodically consuming his dog. He returned to the house carrying John's collar and was greeted by Asako, who asked him if it was a bear. When he admitted that he couldn't kill it, he began to cry because he felt helpless, but Asako reassured him that he was fine just as he was, prompting him to sob uncontrollably after burying John's collar. Yuuji informed Asako that he was sick of being a coward and desired to be as courageous as Asako to protect his family. Due to Yuuji's history, she believed he was programmed to kill, which she wished to avoid. She assured Yuuji that he could not kill because of the safety pin she taught him, which he would only use in dire circumstances. She also taught him that he wouldn't be permitted to die an honorable death unless he saved 5 people because he wouldn't be allowed to murder anyone unless she commanded him to. After her speech, she urged him to become a man willing to fire the trigger without hesitation to save others, not for his benefit. Yuuji received a call when Asako was relaxing in bed one day. According to the call from her workplace, Asako had an urgent job, but she could not, so he went. Yuuji heard JB and Asako arguing one day after JB learned they had traded places in Asako's job. JB said that Asako was treating him similarly to how Oslo did. However, he explained that he was acting of his own free will and that it was his way of repaying her. Asako was asked if he desired a work permit, and he accepted. Yuuji traveled to America to enroll in a naval training academy. He met Danny, who later became his best buddy. He also met Agnes, the army captain in charge of their training, who was notoriously rigorous but granted Yuuji particular consideration because he was an Asako student. During their training, Yuuji was mistakenly given a fake report for hitting every target, but Agnes supported him and assured the sergeant that he possessed exceptional marksmanship skills. During the final exam, Yuuji was given a combat platoon. Thanks for watching. If this series is the most liked in my anime recap production, I will make a part 2. Also, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to help me make more content.